evening, everybody. My name is Hannah Lowe, and I'm Project Coordinator and Research Fellow here at the Dialogue Society, and I'll be hosting tonight's panel discussion on women of faith in public service. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and I hope you all really enjoy the evening and are able to learn something and take something positive away from what you hear tonight. The Dialogue Society is hosting this panel on women of faith, highlighting the experiences, challenges and contributions of women from different faith backgrounds in varying spheres of society. Following on from our previous panel series on women empowerment, this series on women of faith extends our existing work on gender equality more broadly to focus on a particular, often overlooked group of women. The series has 3 panels, each one focusing on a particular theme, and today's panel discussion on women of faith in public service highlights the engagement of women of faith within their local communities and aims to explore how the roles and expectations within public services interact within women's personal faiths and faith-based identities, particularly in often male-dominated working environments. And we also want to look at what are the specific experiences and challenges for women of faith in public services, particularly in positions of authority. Our public services consist of a diverse range of people working together to support and maintain vital functions that benefit society. As many services are increasingly underfunded, the personal ethics and beliefs of those who work in public services become significant in influencing the culture and service itself. How then does faith interact with public service work, especially in environments where teamwork, understanding and dialogue between people from different backgrounds is often crucial for the effective running of services? So before I introduce our 3 speakers today, I just want to let the audience know that we would love them to ask questions in the chat box or in the comments on YouTube, and then we'll go through them and have time for a short Q&A at the end. So our first speaker today will be Councillor Rakhia Ismail, who is Councillor for Holloway Ward in the London Borough of Islington, and previously has been Mayor and Deputy Mayor for Islington. Then we will be hearing from Chika Ashby, who is a legal assistant for Transport for London and provides litigation support and advice to TfL, the Mayor of London and the Greater London Authority Group. She also co-leads TfL's Faith Staff Network. And then lastly, we'll be hearing from Kiran Sandhu, who's representing British Sikh nurses and working in the NHS as a matron. So without further ado, I'd like to pass on to our first speaker of the night, Councillor Rakhia. I think you're on mute, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah, and thank you for the Dialogue Society for inviting me to this important discussion. Women in faith in public office, I think, is a very, very important in every society, and particularly with the current climate in England, where so many issues have been raised. And there is so much contribution, particularly from women of faith in public office. There is so much contribution for particularly women like myself and my panelists in faith, particularly where the next generation of women, of young women of faith, are looking up and trying to find a space where they could also be in public office. I think is a very important. One of the reasons I personally decided to actually go into a public office is I have young daughters, or at the time they're young women now, but I had children and I was working in schools. And I remember one of the first time I worked in a school, a young Muslim a child, she was probably year 4, she ran to me and she said to me, "Oh, you look like my mom, you dress like my mom." And I thought that was one of the best compliments I've ever had. And I was really surprised. I didn't think of it before, it really mattered that much. And then from then onwards, I decided to really go because at the time, my daughters were really babies, very young. And I didn't think about it that much, but it dawned on me that someday my children will be in the same position of that child, where they would maybe recognize someone else, or don't even recognize someone like me. So I decided to sort of like set up a network of women who were also professionals themselves, but have not seen in the arena of schools, have not been seen in the arenas in public office, have not been seen in the arena of even working in the community. And there is so much that a woman of faith can bring into the community. And that's one of the reasons I decided, and I have never looked back. And then I moved on and became a school governor. I moved on and became a local councillor, and also became a mayor. And I've really, since I have gone into a public office and became a councillor, I still get, but not as many, get so many emails for young women and Muslim women asking me, how is it like to be a councillor? And if I want to become a councillor, will I be allowed by hijab? Will I be allowed to pray? And these things have, things that none of us really, I personally never thought about it before. And I just start thinking to myself, there is so many young women out there who are, some of them are even at university levels, at college levels, but they want to go into public office, but there is no someone they can actually identify with and recognize with. And then also in terms of services delivering to the faith communities, there is a gap, because if you are not in a public office, somebody who is not from faith background is not going to think this is what the faith community needs. So there is quite, there's so much change and a lot of improvement has happened, but there is still a long way to go. Difficulties of, being in a public office has its moments as well, because, when you are wearing a hijab, or when you are wearing a turban or a hat, or represent certain faith community, people really sometimes don't think this person beyond their hijab, and you're a label, and you are not being given that opportunity to express. And I think one of the reasons I deliberately speak up and publicly on many issues, in terms of racism, in terms of Islamophobia, in terms of any sort of like inequality, is because if I feel if I don't speak up, someone else will not, because I am quite lucky to be in a certain position. So I think in terms of delivering for faith community, we need more faith women in public office, whether they are, being an MP, whether they are being a councillor, whether they are being even a school governor, teachers. There is so much gap in services. And I think those services, that's why some of the services are lag behind in delivering to these communities, because, people who are designing these projects or delivering services are not taking into consideration 100% what a faith community needs. And I think that's really important. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rakhia. It was just great to hear your perspective, and coming from your role as councillor, and, the stereotypes that people come up against, and the need for other people to be designing services that meet the whole community's needs. So it's really, really good points. And thank you for speaking. I'm just going to pass over next to Chika Ashby. So it's over to you.
Hiya. I'm actually at an odd ring day now. It's so funny because I haven't changed my name. I got married in the pandemic, and when you're a pandemic bride, changing your name sometimes becomes a last priority. But and also so I was co-chair of the Christian Network, and I've recently passed that baton to Ivana, who may even be in the chat right now. If you are, give a wave. But yeah, I'm very much involved in our Christian network, which I love at TFL. I've been a Christian now for about 10 years, and I've probably been in public service for almost as long, actually. And so I guess I have to give the kind of like honest caveat that I don't really have any private sector experience to compare my life of faith in the professional world with. But yeah, I love public service. I love being in the public sector. And even regardless of what sector you're in, I just think one of the reasons why I love being parts of conversations like this is because I think faith is just so important to every sector, every area of life. And I say that because if you think about what faith actually is, you know, some synonyms of it are like your confidence, your convictions, beliefs, the things you trust, the things you hope in, which I would argue are things that everybody has. Yeah, I think, you know, no matter what area of life you're in, when you get up in the morning, you do what you do in the way you do because of what you believe about life. And so for some of us, you know, we go to work to pay bills or to because we believe we have a talent or something to contribute to society. There's so many reasons why people do what they do, but ultimately it does come from a place of belief. And even as I was walking home today, I was thinking, unfortunately, it's a sad situation to think about, but I was thinking about the story of what happened this year to Sarah Everard. And one of the reasons why that was so shocking was because what we believe about someone who is in a certain role was contradicted by what her perpetrator did to her. You think if you're in a role to serve and protect, that you would never do something like that. But and when they were uncovering what's happened to her, they looked into, well, what did this man believe, and what he believed about women, or what he believed about somebody else's life, or what his entitlement to led to him doing something quite horrific. But I'll move on to that. But I just think faith is fundamental to everything that we do, and I think we better understand one another when we understand what they believe, what someone else believes. I interact in society better with others when I am honest about what I believe, when they're honest about what they believe, and we seek to understand one another. I just think it's vital. As for me, being a Christian, what does that mean? It means that I am an employee who is someone who is forgiven by God through Christ. If this is helpful to say, just for anyone who doesn't, for my own accountability, and then for anyone who may not know much about the Christian faith, one of the things I've loved about being on the Faith SNG is learning about other people's faith. So yeah, for Christianity, I'd say some of the fundamentals are, because I believe I'm forgiven by God, I live from a sense of freedom from condemnation, and it makes me more forgiving. I don't, you know, I used to have a vendetta a week probably, 10 years ago, and I can't remember the last time I had a grudge. I also don't see any problem as being beyond redemption. I don't see anything as being too difficult. Faith is very grounding in that respect. A Christian is always also someone who is filled with God, and I think that's a bit of an ethereal concept, probably a bit too far out for a 10-minute slot on a Thursday evening. But what I mean is, it's someone who I believe God sees everything I do, absolutely everything. And even if the eyes of men don't look at it, he is looking at it. And so I don't live to just please the eyes of human beings. I live to please him. And I'm accountable to a much higher standard in my eyes than just what people can see me do. And so it's also about the matters of my heart and just how I think about other people. Some of the things that aren't always so obvious. And then a Christian is also someone who is furnished by God. I'm going to say it's just a way of saying sanctification, which is a word that we often use. But basically, I say furnished because it's the best picture I can give of like when someone gets a new house and they fill it with things. And so it's like thankfully, God doesn't just forgive me and fill me, he also starts to build in me the qualities, the traits that make me who I am. So over the course of this past 10 years, I've become more loving, more peaceful, more joyful. And rather than just also talking about all the great positive things, I've also become aware of where I fall short. So you become you become aware of your hypocrisy, possibly, and you hold yourself to a high account. I've also become more able to withstand suffering and things that aren't so easy. I've definitely seen my tolerance. And yeah, so the whole point of the fundamentals of Christianity really are those things, and being more like Jesus Christ in your day-to-day life and growing in that. And who better to really have on your payroll than Jesus, is what I would say anyway. And so why is that lovely in public service? Why is it great for the sector that I'm in? Because I think that sector really promotes and really encourages, and it's actually that, it's part of your objectives is to provide a great service to anyone who needs it. And when that becomes part of your deliverable, working in Transport for London, I literally ride the service that we provide to go to work each day. I get to see the faces of the people who are who are using our services. I get to hear, working in disputes, I get to hear the complaints, some of the issues. And I get to see each individual in the way that Jesus was, and care about them in the way that he would. And whether I fall short of that or not, I know what the standard is. And that's my desire. And so I absolutely love being in the public sector. I don't know if I'll ever not be in public service in some respects. I love seeing the impact that what we do means to everybody who needs it. And I love the fact that equality is at the heart of what you do. It has to be accessible to as many as possible, and you're constantly striving to improve that service in that way. I was actually at dinner yesterday with a colleague, and he works in continuous improvement, and he said that he uses the examples of Jesus for a lot of how he models improvement. So yeah, my faith, I can't speak for other faiths, I can't speak for even every Christian, but my faith in Jesus absolutely informs how I operate in the legal profession, how I operate as a member of a public servant, but also how I operate in life generally. And I think it's a great standard to be held to. I think the values are important, and most importantly, as I said at the beginning, I do think faith is a conversation that needs to be had. It needs to be heard. People need to know what people believe. I don't think you're dealing with someone until you get to the heart of what they believe. So yeah, I love having the conversations. I don't care how difficult they are, and I don't mind people disagreeing with me or being. Sometimes I would like to hear if someone's offended or disagrees with something that I believe, because I think it's worth having the conversation. Like I said, my model is Jesus, and he was never afraid of having difficult conversations and loving people who didn't really like him. So I love living from that position. It's extremely liberating, very rewarding, and I can't see myself living any other way now. So yeah.
Thank you, Chika. It's so nice for you to just share your perspective on that. And yeah, it's really interesting how personal faith impacts so much day-to-day life at work, and yeah, not just social life or personal life, but actually how your values really probably are part of the reason that you are where you are, and also how you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. It's really valuable. So I'm going to pass over to our last speaker today, Kiran, Sandhu.
Can you hear me now? Sorry, I was on the mute. Yeah, thank you, Hannah. Thank you for the communication and swift replies. And I am also thankful to Dalits Society, because I come across this network because I was going through ASEAN articles, and I come across that, oh my God, there's amazing work going on and I need to be part of it. So thank you for that. Yes, I work in NHS setting. I'm working since 2004. I work in different organizations at different levels. At present, I'm working as the operational manager. And from next week onwards, I would be working with the guys in Thompson's Hospital as a senior matron, covering 2 different settings in London. So it's really interesting topic. Women of faith in public services really alarmed me because NHS is a setting where no one asks your race, your gender, your color, your bank balance. Treat every single person same. Doesn't matter who you are, and I'm very proud of that because my personal faith and belief, because I've come from Sikhism, Sikh family, and we treat every human being as a human being, as a single individual person. We respect all religion in our culture. So we don't have any stigma of women being treated differently or asking questions. And parallelly, in my profession, we promote equality and diversity. It's inclusive equality. So yeah, I have worked with different faiths, different ethnic groups, multinational communities. But after listening to you guys, it's something alarmed me that there is definitely aspect of that people come from, what people do, there's a reason behind it. And definitely we do respect them, but also need to continually respect their faith, give them time, and non-judgmental and unbiased. That's something we need to promote more. In the Sikhism, what we believe in this religion is that men and women are the 2 different sides of this same human coin, and there is a system of interrelation and interdependence where we believe the man is born out of a woman. So there's a huge respect for the woman, and also there are parallelly there is a cultural impact on women where still 20% of the women within Sikhism is been empowered comparing to the men. So although we got the equal rights, we got equal code and conduct to practice our services, but still we are not empowered. So I do believe that women need to come across and encourage themselves or encourage their children, or especially the girls, to empower themselves, to be independent, to make their own decisions, and go out there and encourage their own faith while working in the public services, by promoting the same professional code of conduct and respecting other religions as well. So this is something I deliver at work environment, because to me, every single human is a human. I respect, and especially being in an army family, I've been to the mosque, I've been to the church, I've been to the temple, I've been to the Sikh temple. So I've been raised in a culture with a multiple faith, because that's what my background was. So I don't see people differently, but yes, I do come across at work environment, people get, I think it's unconscious biased mind where they do make a comment, oh, that's their culture, that's why they're loud, that's why they're quiet, that's why they're wearing this hijab, or that's what they're covering their head. And I'm a member of Women Sport Officer in my NHS organization, where I not only encourage women to speak, but also empower them, also encourage them to make decisions in their own personal life. Where, as I said, still in our community, there's a 20% women who are active, who are allowed to do certain things. So yeah, we encourage them, and especially suffering with my own personal life, I come across with honor-based violence, where and I encourage women to come out and understand the difference between what their culture and faith gives to them, and what they are believing, and how they can come out of this honor-based violence, and how can they go back and justify their actions and reactions to their family and friends and the society. I think yes, this is something. This is something that's not going to change in one day. It's going to be the baby steps, but definitely there need to be a role model. There need to be a leadership. There need to be empowerment, and there need to be a community who can support the women and the young girls. Not only the Sikh community, but definitely in women in the community. So another thing is in a Sikh religion, we are obligated to treat women as equal, as its theory, but practical things are not always the same. There's no gender discrimination. In the Sikh society, men and women are considered same, they're treated same, and gender equality has been difficult to achieve in the, in practice due to of heavy social, culture and caste-related pressures. Sometimes it's come across. It's what nothing that the caste system itself goes against the core principle of Sikhism. So basically, we have a principle to treat equal, but another society pressure comes along. So that's something I think things has been changed since last so many years. It's definitely changing. It's definitely progressing, and that's something I think we need to enlighten to the young girls, basically. To me, the religion is something I think we are human beings first, and we need to be treated everyone equally, and then we focus in our faith and in our religion and in our culture. But somewhere it does impact, and we need to understand rather than making assumptions on it. So we need to understand each other really well. And the aim is to rid the soul of sins and realize the goal by the Guru's guidance, because this is our prophet we call the Guru. And once this is achieved, the inner character becomes absorbed and strengthened by the God. So that God can be Jesus, that God can be any peer, or that can be our Guru, or anyone. So basically the teachings are, every faith teaches are the one lessons that is in light, and we need to follow that. And that's something I'm here for, and this is what I this is my something I encourage within my organizations. This is what I follow. And again, as I said earlier, I'm working in the organization where I'm very much proud of, and especially during the COVID time period, we really suffered a lot in hospital, the nurses, doctors. But I think first time I realized that how interconnected we are, and how working together with especially different ethnic diverse group in NHS. We are the organization where we work with a multiple ethnic group. Working together, we come together as a strong people, as a human being, and we learned a lot from each other. We respected a lot, and I think future is bright not in NHS organization, public services, but also out there, because we supported each other. And definitely, this is something I think I would like to promote, and not in my community, but out there in the community with the multiple faiths. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiran. Thank you for talking about your perspective, and coming from the NHS, especially as an organisation that really does value equality, and I know they have a lot of policies and focus on that. So yeah, thank you for talking about your view on that, and especially on women and the way that different beliefs impact women and how they might be seen. So I think we will go into a Q&A now. We've got a bit of time. So I'm just gonna ask a first question to anyone, all three of you, so you can chip in if you want to. The first question we've got is, how important is dialogue and good communication between different faith groups in building cohesive work environments?
I think it is, can I chime in? I think it's really, really important. Our faith community has more dialogue, more communication, more understanding. I myself, as a Muslim woman, the more I actually interact, and I do interact with other faiths, and even people who don't have faiths, it's the more I actually learn, the more I have understanding, the more I see a different perspective from my faith, and the more also I appreciate my faith as well as others. So I think it's very, very important the faith community should dialogue. The key is with faith communities, we all, it's the most important thing I learned about different faiths over the years is like, it's got one key message. It's about fairness, equality, and understanding. And that's what faith tells us. And as a Muslim woman, that's what my faith tells me, is I have to be fair and justice across. And I think that's why the more we know about each other's faith, the more mutual respect and understanding we have. And I think it's a key. Lately, I do see there are dialogue of faith communities, and I think that is the key to the future and to the key of the next generation understanding. Other than your faith, my faith, it's no longer what used to be. You can see young people when they leave school or when they are at school. When I used to work at school, that they would have a dialogue about. So and so is faith. So and so it's Diwali. It's the lights in the Jewish community. It's about Eid. It's so much richness among us within interfaith community, and I think that's the message that we should pass on to the next generation.
Can I add something? I think I was kind of saying this when I was giving my introduction, but I genuinely do think what people believe is just at the heart of who they are. And so I think when you talk about a working environment, there could be something that like, for example, my Muslim colleagues, like, if they're fasting during Ramadan, I have one particular colleague who I know he is very strict with his fasting, and I would be very mindful that during that time, I'm not going to waft around him with a plate of food, or I might understand why he might be low in energy or something like that. And so when you're working with people and you understand that what they believe, what they value, what they hold dear, it makes you work better together, I think. And especially where we are in public sectors, we are serving people who have some of these values with the people that we work with. And so you won't understand, like, since I've been on the Faith SMG, I've learned just so many different things. I've learned about certain sects of Hinduism who don't eat certain types of foods. You just learn so much. And I think one way that you can love your neighbor, which is at the core of what Christianity is to understand them. And I don't think you understand people very well if you don't listen, if you don't have conversation. So I do think that it's, and I think the world is waking up to it. As you can see, there's much more of a push of bringing your whole self to work and having these conversations and making sure that they embrace these conversations, because I do think you can't have an employee who's fruitful in the workplace without knowing what makes them tick. Yeah.
I agree with both of you. Whatever you said, actually, it's definitely faith is fundamental to us, and every single person in the community is definitely is needed, is essential, and to everyone, and especially this week is a faith. In the school, my daughter was talking about that we are celebrating different faiths, and every single day they are going through the Christianity, the Muslim families, the Hindus and Sikhism and Buddhism, and children now, and you can see the respect they're giving to each other as an individual. They're respecting their wishes, they're respecting their beliefs, their perspectives. That's something is really good learning from us, and I'm amazed that it started from the primary school, and I'm sure the future will be people will not be considering the different religion. They will be considering the humanity relationship more than a religion. I think that's my perspective. I think, yes, but faith is something is fundamental and everyone would be practicing, but the outcome will be positive in the near future. And especially COVID as a thought-provoking situation come along, and we learned a lot of lessons and working together. And I think it's a positive strength come out with the different faiths and different beliefs when they work together. Everyone chip in with a positive perspective. Everyone has their strengths, their weaknesses in different reasons, and that's really bring enhance the skill and knowledge at work environment.
I think you're quite right, and I think there's another element is that though faith makes us really what we are is women of faith who are public servant who at the core of our belief and our work is that to be fair and just and at the end of the day, when you go back to your home, you go back and sleep and think of, did I do really well? Because at the end of the day, you are a servant of God. And that's what I often ask myself. I don't think about this is how it should be, or this is how it should. I have to really, live with my conscience as a Muslim woman of whatever I do, that it has a repercussion. But there's another element, within not the Muslim, faith, with all faiths, I think that there are large sectors of communities who don't believe any faith, and that also as a Muslim woman I have to take on board and try and understand, because I think otherwise if you just stop it at just be people with faith, it becomes a big problem in society. So for me it's like whatever you believe, if it's even a pencil, I have to be tolerant, I have to respect, because I think there is a big society. And the beauty of it also is now at a very young age, like Karina mentioned, at primary school, children are being taught about different faiths and also non-faiths, because there are people, of course, young children who their parents don't believe and wouldn't understand that either. And the beauty is in the future, if you think about it, give it another 5, 10, 15 years, these children are going to be much, much more tolerant, much, much more inclusive and understanding about other people's perspective of faith and non-faith. And I think that's really, we are starting that conversation. I think it's important.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to add, faith is something where we find our strength, resilience, and we bring up positivity to the community, and in which we find ourselves as a human body, who we are, who I am. That's more important question, to know other people. First, you understand yourself, who you are. So definitely that's what the faith plays in our life. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just going to bring another question we've had somebody ask to all panelists. Have you had any organizational or institutional barriers to practicing your faith in the workplace? And has this changed over time? And what was the catalyst for change?
Shall I go first? Actually, working in organizations, such a biggest organization worldwide, is number 4th now in the world, NHS, and there are some of the areas in hospitals where we don't have a prayer room, especially during Ramadan. Having said that, if any employee come to me as a manager saying that, I would like to have this time period off, and I would like to pray, and it's the responsibility of the manager, and we do support. We do give them time off, and we try to find a room. But if you come across, especially new built hospitals, even the hospitals that were there, we are trying to promote their faith, their religion, their practices, and are giving them the environment where they can practice. So yes, as we discussed earlier, the next generation will be more resilient, and they understand why. And similarly in NHS, the workforce understands why this is essential to a certain person, why they want a time off, and why they wanted to be practicing their faith at the work environment. So yes, in our organization in NHS, we are really promoting equality, diversity, and we are promoting and respecting their religion as well. So we are accommodating even if we don't have. So it's something if they communicate what their needs are. So I'm sure in the future, whatever the hospitals will be built, they definitely will have the space and room for them.
I think one of the benefits of the public sector generally is that it tends to be quite ahead of the curve often when it comes to being inclusive. So I won't say I've seen necessarily physical barriers to practicing my faith or anything put in place that's restricted. I would say that possibly the culture of any work environment doesn't always embrace faith. So it might not be a physical thing, it might not be a policy or something that you see, or a lack of access to something. But sometimes, and I think that, like I said, the conversation is changing over time. I think that there can be more of a leaning towards a secular culture that makes people of faith want to keep quiet, or makes people of faith think, well, I won't talk too openly about my faith. I also think there's a stigma when you come from a known faith group, that all you want is, you just want to make everybody part of your faith group, and that's all you're there to do. And whilst you want to talk openly about your faith, you don't want people to come at you thinking to think, oh, you're just Bible bashing me, or you just want to tell me about what's in the Quran. No, I think there's certain cultural things that we're trying to work through, which I think dialogue helps with, where it could be more open to people who are of faith talking about the fact that they are of faith. Not everybody that I work with will know I'm a Christian. I don't think they need to necessarily. I don't need to ram it down your throat, but I do think, well, what's going on in the air if I don't feel that I can say something all the time? I don't feel I could talk as comfortably about the things I do as a Christian, perhaps, as if I was going out for dinner tonight and, I'm going to a Bible study. So that could be a personal thing. That could be, that might just be my own fears. But yeah, I do think the culture is warming up to people of faith.
Yeah, I think I quite agree with Karina. I think, I'm quite lucky because anyone who sees me will automatically notice that I'm Muslim. So I think that is, I don't have a problem on that aspect. But occasionally there are some issues. I don't actually have a physical barrier when it comes to practicing my faith. But there are occasional times that I would come across unconscious bias towards my faith and how I maybe sometimes you'd be leaving in the middle of a meeting to do my prayers. Sometimes in the middle of a meeting, it's a Ramadan, and I would say, I'm not going to attend that time, or I will, leave the room for 10 minutes to break my fasting and jump back to the meeting. So there are occasionally, unconscious bias, and the culture is changing, but it's not changing fast enough, unfortunately. But of course, Rome was not built a day, so things are slowly going and growing. But I wouldn't say I have had physically, I've been stopped, like I cannot attend to my prayer. That didn't happen. And I think we are very lucky in England. We're quite tolerant in aspects of respecting one another's faith, especially when you say to someone, oh, I have to go and do my prayer, or I have to go and, break my fasting, and approach, the chair of the meeting, or line manager. People would be, quite respectful and say, oh, yes, of course. But it's when you don't say these things, it's what happens. It's like, it's neither here nor there. So I think overall things are changing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to hear the differences between physical barriers and also just sometimes culture or the atmosphere of workplace. So yeah, I think that's a good question. And we have one more that I just wanted to ask. It's, what role do you think women of faith can play in the fight for gender equality? Can you elaborate a little bit more? Because I think we've mentioned it a little bit.
Being me as a leader, so I think in organization, I think what role I would play with my workforce is definitely promoting the respect among the team, diversity, and also development of a more cohesive community working together. Definitely restoration of the trust. We build up the trust, we build up the strength working together, and when you understand and you're fair and you respect each other, then there's automatically reduction of threats, the reduction of the negative feelings, and that's something I think the woman who is representing faith definitely would be promoting, but also empowering the team, encourage them to speak up, encourage them to discuss how they're feeling, how and what they're expecting from the organization. I think it's a two-way approach, definitely. I mean, I always come across the senior management, even when I was very new employee within NHS organization. If I have something, especially just say, for example, Diwali, and I want to take a time off, and I will say, oh, I didn't realize I didn't book my time off. Is it okay if I go half an hour early, or can I have a half a day? And I'm sure it's a two-way communication between employee and employer. You build up the trust, you deliver something positive, and you get back something. So that's something a woman can bring into the work environment, and encourage others as well.
I can add, in the Christian faith, you're described as, you say that in Christ there is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female. You start from a place of equality and you start from a place of understanding the deep value that every human being holds, and it's an equal value. I'm sure people are familiar with what the Christian faith is founded on: Jesus Christ dying for humanity. He didn't pick out certain types of humanity, and so for me as a woman of faith, I live from that, and I think all women of faith should aim to live out loud. Not that you're a protester, but that you live you know, don't shrink. don't shrink. Like when Councillor Rakhia said someone ran up to her and held her like she was their mother because of it was a representation for her. And so I think if I shrink in my faith, if I hide my faith, if I suppress it, I do an injustice, not just to myself as a woman of faith, but to other women of faith, other women who are looking at me and thinking, well, okay, if you're a Christian or if you believe, but then, you know, how's that shown in your life? Why do I, you know, there's just, I think there's something for representation, basically. And I think living confidently, living with integrity, so, you know, actually living according to what you believe, it speaks volumes. Your life can be a letter to others, just by living it according to what you say you believe.
Yeah, I think also I can add, I agree with both my panelists, fellow panelists. I think the most important thing for me as a Muslim woman, what the role I can play in women equality and the gender, is bringing not just leadership, but modesty, understanding, and also being firm, because a lot of women are, in terms of in public office or in a male-dominated space, regardless of faith, are not assertive enough. So as a woman of faith, I feel myself, you know, and the faith I represent fairness and justice and equality. And that's what I would take it into a practice, confidence, encouragement, supportive, and as well, you know, being a Muslim woman, wearing my, visible Muslim woman, I have to, I feel I'm a not just ambassador to other Muslim faith women, but as a female, I am also ambassador to other women. So I have to conduct myself in the most professional, fairness way, and not tolerate any nonsense of not inequality for women, basically.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it is really important representing different people within one place and having people not afraid to be who they really are. And just because you've got a couple of minutes left, I'll just ask one little question. Going forwards, how do you think changes can be made to encourage people, and especially women of faith, to have equality in their workplace and to feel confident in who they are?
I think women of faith, I think as we discussed earlier, I think the more dialogue women of faith have, and the more representation that we have in different spaces, I think would be the way forward. And just being really that, in this day and age, we should not be thinking about faith. We should be thinking about professionalism. We should be thinking about fairness across the board, and really representation as well, because that's what boils down to. And as faith women, we should be really coming together and form that unity. And I would even also, as I mentioned earlier, go further of women who have no faith. I think as women, we should be, speaking up for one another, because sometimes what happens in public offices is that a lot of women, unfortunately, when another woman is in difficulties, will not speak for her because they are worried about their position, or they are worried about something would happen to them, and someone who sometimes is known for, making trouble when it comes to equality, in a good trouble. I don't mean in a bad trouble. I think women of faith and non-women of faith should speak up and hold their hands high, because I think that's how we can fight and the good fight of male-dominated society, because often what we project is what our children and other younger women are going to pick. Thank you.
Should I jump in? Yeah, I would say to push for more transparency. Again, one of the things that the public sector is known for anyway, or known for striving for, is transparency, which helps to make clear where there is inequality. And so to push for those things. And I think it's tough, because I think, I'll agree with that point that Councillor Rakhia said, which is more dialogue. I personally, I've said it too many times now on this call even, that I think everyone has a faith. And I think even those who are classed as no faith groups believe in something. And so just being more open about saying things that you believe, because it could be that somebody maybe who is in a position of power does believe that, for example, a woman shouldn't be paid the same as a man for the same role. But you won't know that unless we have a more open dialogue, unless we're more open about what people actually think and what people actually believe, until we get past scratching the surface. And just, be more transparent. And as for me, again, I can only speak for Christianity. We strive to do justice and love mercy. And so just fighting for what is just, striving for what is just, having mercy where it's not, where you can see injustice. I think sometimes people are afraid, particularly in modern culture, to say where things have gone wrong, because I think we're not a very merciful society anymore. We hear something's wrong and we just want to attack it and cancel people. And I think if we could be a bit more merciful towards where we see things have gone wrong, perhaps people will be more open about their flaws and hold their hands up more and not be as defensive. So doing justice and loving mercy.
Yeah, listening to you both, I remember something. I was reading a book, and in that Buddha, probably you know the Buddha, he said the suffering exists in the community, because he always used to provide a simple antidotes of the suffering. And he said it in that book that yes, suffering exists in the community, and it only arises when we start believing that we are separate and not one. So all in the end, I would say that all is one and all is different, and in itself, this is not a problem if we believe we all are one. So that sums up, like, if we expect something, we should deliver to other people as well.
Thank you so much for answering those questions. And I think we've come to the end of our time. So just want to say a really big thank you to all our panelists. And it's just been really, really valuable to hear your different perspectives. And I think there's been a lot of crossover. And I just think the core things that we've been saying is just really important. And it's been a really great time just to dialogue with each other and have conversations that are really necessary and really vital to have. So I just want to say thank you so much. It's just been a privilege to be here and to hear all of you. So thank you for giving your time. And
thank you to your time too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Lovely to meet you, everyone.